Let's welcome our viewers to this platform. And today we're joined by the chairman of Ikapa Sporting, Shaun Pietersen. Shaun, welcome to this platform.
Thank you, Idris. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
It's good to have you, man. And it's been quite an interesting time to be speaking to yourself. And I think we're going to look at quite interesting topics as we chat to you. And I think the first one is to look at the dispute that Ikapa and seven football clubs that have lodged against the South African Football Association pertaining to the declaration of the ABC Motsepe League.
Well, Idris, as you know, we've lodged a dispute a few weeks ago, and subsequently we've gone through an arbitration case, which we'll give more detail on later on. But mainly the reason for us doing that was mainly because we felt the decision was unfair. We're only 8 clubs that have done this. Whether we 8, whether we 1, whether we the entire 144, makes no difference. The principle of the matter will always remain. And the inconsistency of SAFA, who is now letting the Castle League go and compete for their winners to come into our league. They will get promotion to our league. Our teams who are on the bottom of the log will remain in the league. Is totally inconsistent. We in the Western Cape, we had between 11 and 14 games remaining. Other provinces had between 4 and 6 and maybe 8 games remaining. We initially were requested to resume the league at the end of August. And then from the end of August until the 5th of October, no communication, and then all of a sudden the leagues were declared null and void and the log leaders were sent to playoffs. We felt that it was unfair, not only to us, the 8 clubs, we felt that it was unfair to the entire 144, even the ones who were going to playoffs. And proves that now the Castle League, they're going to play and complete their leagues, and we were not allowed to. Without communication between end of August and first week of October, nothing from SAFA, nothing from anyone. We prepared ourselves for the resumption of the league. Initially, Western Cape gave the decision not to restart the league, but to declare everything null and void, and with that meaning nobody gets promotion, nobody gets relegated, and it fell on deaf ears. It was considered apparently, but it was felt that the investment of the teams that were in pole position at the time would be a major problem, because those teams invested. The fact of the matter is the 9 teams were not the only teams that invested. 144 teams invested. What about the other 135 teams, you know? And we're speaking for the other 135 teams. We're speaking for football in general and how football gets run in South Africa. And like I said to you earlier, we got the arbitration case concluded. We were given a ruling that was for SAFA. We unfortunately were not happy with that ruling. SAFA had their council. We were asked to choose an arbitrator. We chose an arbitrator. They came with their own arbitrator. And with all due respect to the people, our case was thrown out on the basis of a technicality. So there's a lot at stake here still. we obviously debriefed, and we're looking at our options, and we still going to exercise our rights. So that's where we are at this point in time.
Let's dissect this for a moment, Chairman, and look at the communication process that declared the league winners. My understanding is that at some stage there was going to be a resumption of the league, and
Correct.
communication was sent through to the regions, and preparations were about to take place. And there was a period, the window period, where people, or rather the clubs, were given an opportunity to say the league is going to resume.
Correct.
At what point that this changed, and how did the clubs get together, or consulted, or informed? Was there a meeting that was called to inform the clubs? I'm talking now in the context of Western Cape, to say this is what's going to happen. A decision is going to be taken at a national level, and therefore we will have to support that decision.
Yes, Idris, look, each and every province had a meeting, and a representative or a compliance officer of SAFA was sent or went on to a Zoom with each and every province. We, the Western Cape, we had such meeting with Mr. Nkumi of SAFA, and we still have the minutes of that meeting. We still have the recording of that Zoom, where he clearly highlighted to us in about 21 points what would be required for the resumption of the league. We spent about approximately 2 hours going through each and every point, based on COVID rules and regulations sent through by FIFA to all the leagues worldwide. And we were obviously, I won't say the items were specific for South Africa, but it obviously was taken from how it was used or done elsewhere in the world. So we were given strict rules and regulations as per the compliance officer's request and requirements. A document was sent prior to that meeting for us to interrogate and then have our questions ready after or while that meeting was in the process. We had a number of questions. We were concerned about a number of things in that meeting. And in that meeting, and needless to say, all the onuses and responsibilities and cost was placed on the clubs. And we had in Western Cape major concerns about it, because the items, the 21 items that was requested, came at a cost, a huge cost. Here we're talking 144 amateur clubs having to sanitize, having to transport players, having to do all the necessary COVID requirements in order to resume football. We had a concern about, should any player, manager, anyone succumb to COVID-19 during this time of resumption. The big concern we had was, who would be responsible for that individual? Again, the onuses were placed on the clubs. All the clubs were going to be held responsible. Each and every club, before every match, needed to go to the nearest police station to register the players, to have the players' temperatures logged. It was a process, and a long and hefty process. And I can quite understand very easily why SAFA decided not to go ahead with this. Because the main thing the clubs were concerned about was the cost of all of this. Now, initially, Minister Nati Ntetwa indicated to them that should football resume, it should resume with exactly the same protocols used for the NFD and the PSL. And this meant all the clubs would then go into a bubble. Again, huge cost associated with this. Now, the cost was the main thing here. The main thing here. And you know, I'll be quite straight and very open. The clubs never had the funds, and SAFA appeared not to have the funds when they requested us to do this. After that meeting, we were then requested to formalize our concerns and send it to your region. In our case, SAFA Western Cape, which we did. Further to that, that was at the end of August, I think the 23rd of August. After that, 5th of October, we get an email from SAFA informing us the league's declared null and void and the log leaders would go to playoffs.
And that was the message that all the clubs received without any input. So my understanding is that then clubs gave input on the costing, gave input on the concerns of resumption,
of course,
with the responsibility placed within the football clubs to coordinate everything without any funding coming from the Football Association.
Without any funding, not a single cent was, in our case, even mentioned by SAFA. Now, one of the things that could have happened was SAFA owes all the clubs countrywide half the season traveling fee.
We're going to talk about that shortly. We're going to talk about the funding that is being injected. Or supposed to be injected.
But that funding could have been used to assist this very process.
Yeah.
Again, no commitment, financial commitment came from SAFA.
Let's take it straight to the dispute. You submitted a dispute or you lodged a dispute against the Football Association and the other clubs. Now, one of the contested areas was the fact that the clubs were supposed to, according to the statutes of the FA, were supposed to submit the dispute within 72 hours. And that dispute came after 72 hours.
Correct. Let me explain to you what transpired in that instance. Immediately, when we received notification, we requested, and we being the 8 who mobilized very quickly about the decision, we got hold of attorneys. Our attorneys then requested documents from SAFA within that period, within that 72-hour period. Documents from SAFA giving us the members who attended the meeting, requested a register, we requested minutes of that meeting, we requested, and we wanted to understand if they had a quorum. That information was sent to us a few hours before the arbitration, 20 odd days later. On the day of arbitration, a few hours before, we or our attorneys got involved with the case, we received this information. Now, yes, we had to look at all angles. We requested the rules and regulations of the competition. SAFA did give us a response. And the response was to follow Article 81 in the rules and regulations of SAFA. And that gives you and highlights the process of what we needed to do. And it also gave us that you've just mentioned now, the timelines. So we were way behind, way behind the fact that we never met the time criteria. Problem was, we didn't know what the statute and the decision and who made the decision at the time, because they never gave us the information. Hence us following the process and going directly to arbitration. Only later to find out that we should have joined with the league winners in order to make our case valid. And then the case was thrown out based on these technicalities. Legal jargon that I'm not qualified to mention. But on the basis of principle here, on the technicality, our case was not even heard. One of the items in our case was the fact that in the Eastern Cape, the log leaders played the game more than the team lying second. They were leading by 1 point. And they weren't allowed to play the same amount of games. So what do? Do you take off the game, the extra games points of that team specifically, or do you allow the other team to play the extra game? Total inconsistency. Those were one of the points we wanted to raise. We were not allowed to raise that point. In the Western Cape, we were between 11 and 13, 14 games behind of the completion. If you look at the PSL and NFD, those teams leading the log at the resumption of football never won the league. So in principle, who says the teams who were leading the logs would have won? On the radio the other evening, on Radio Metro, it was clearly mentioned that what about the investments of those teams who were leading the log? And again, my question, what about the other 135 teams who also invested?
Yeah, let's talk for a moment about we're going to come back to the dispute. Let's talk about the decision that the Western Cape took to declare the league null and void. What informs that, and what were the expectations? Because one understands that the FA was under pressure to take the 2 spots in the Glad Africa Championship. So how was the Western Cape seeing the null and void situation?
Look, Idris, 6 months later, after the league stops, surely that must have been a question that the officials and administration had on their minds. And we were in COVID lockdown, and there were lots of challenges pertaining to the resumption of all sports worldwide. But there was a process, and there was planning, time to plan, time to think, time to put this in place. To come 6 months later, or longer, and to come without a plan, tells us that it wasn't well thought through in the best interest of a proper sporting decision. If you look worldwide, the rest of the world made proper sporting decisions. The rest of the world received COVID funds from FIFA, CAF funds from from CAF, to assist with football worldwide in this time and with these challenges. The question will be asked, were those funds used for that specifically? That's one of the questions we're asking. So our understanding was very clear. This wasn't thought through correctly. The Western Cape had separate meetings on a weekly or fortnightly basis, where a vote was taken at the end, 99%, except the team, obviously, who was leading the log, made the decision to not play for the rest of the season. That's to be honest with you. And that information was filtered through to the province, where our member should have forwarded that decision to SAFA. Whether it happened or not, we don't know. We don't know if he was there, if he was part of the decision making, we don't know. But we got confirmation a few hours before the arbitration. But in saying that, we had just about half the league still to play. We were just over that. We played 2 games, 3 games into the new second half of the league. So we had a whole second round still to play. There were between 33 and 39 points to play for. With the log leaders leading by 3, 4, 8, 11, 15 points. We saw in the NFD, we saw in the PSL, there was no guarantee teams who were on top would win the league. We saw it in football all over the world as well. So for some individuals to make a decision like that, it would mean that they needed to take a calculated risk in making that decision. 1. 2, if they used points per game or they used a factor or whatever decision they made to take that decision, whatever formula they took or used to take that decision, one could have understood. To make an assumption that the teams who were on top of the league earned the right to go to playoffs was irrational and not the correct sporting decision, because it shows a lack of leadership, and that's what we had to concern with. It clearly shows it. And again, our concerns were not having an issue with the teams who were leading the log. We don't have an issue with them at all. But later on, for arbitration finding to find that we should have joined these teams as part of our case, when these specifically top teams only had one thing, and that was to gain an opportunity, also seemed kind of absurd and one directed decision that was taken.
Yeah.
So that is how we looked at it.
So you were expected, as all the clubs who have lodged a dispute, to join the clubs who are at the top of the log. So
yes, and all the clubs in the country. Now you must remember, all the clubs in the country, besides the fact that we get 30,000 rand travel per year, which is our only form of income, and sometime during or after the season, our referees' fees get given back to us that we pay for every game. Clubs didn't have money.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, because I like how you've taken us now to this discussion. Let's talk about the funding that is being injected per club. What funding do you, as a club, get from the Football Association as you are in the ABC Motsepe League? What have you received, and what are the amounts, and what have you not received?
Idris, first of all, let me explain that each and every club of the 144 clubs in the country receives, or to receive, 30,000 rand per year. At the halfway mark, you get the half, and close to the end, you get the other half. That is the
So it's your
plan or the
so
principle
your 30,000 rands for the entire season.
for the entire season. Entire season. I must remember, in each region or province, we have teams in all different parts of that province. And it's traveling for 5 hours in one direction, 4 hours in the other direction. And traveling alone in the Western Cape comes to about, and just for away travel, probably about 150,000 rand per year. That's just for traveling.
So as a club owner, you pay for everything because
You
the
pay.
30,000
You pay.
rands is up in smoke.
Let me explain. The 30,000 rand, 10,000 rand gets taken off for registration fee.
Okay, so you're left with 20,000.
Then you'll get your 5,000 at the halfway mark, like we did this season. And now we're waiting. Everyone's waiting for the 15,000, which is a very interesting situation because we never played the second half of the season. So the question is, are we liable for the 15,000? And that is the question.
Considering
I'm not too sure we'll get it.
Considering that the 30,000 rands is not sufficient, you've spent more than 30,000 rands already.
Absolutely.
If you consider you're traveling. So the 30,000 rands, it's monies that you should get in any case because it doesn't even come closer to your expenses.
It doesn't even come close.
Let's talk about the payments. Do you receive your payments timelessly?
No, we don't. We don't. We received our grants of last year and the year before this year during COVID. And the portion owed to us for the first half of the season. Each and every club in this country today is owed 15,000 rand. All 144 clubs are owed 15,000 rand. And again, I said the question is, will we receive it? Because we haven't completed our leagues.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the COVID funding, because we'll also get to the association to chat about this league specifically and how it's being done, how things are done so that everybody knows in public what happens behind the scenes. Because I think that needs to be known in the public. Did the clubs receive COVID funding? Because we understand that FIFA made payments. The CAF also made payments to associations around the continent.
As far as we know, only the provinces has received COVID funding. None of us have received COVID funding, and we're not too sure of the number or the amount, but no single club specific received any COVID funding. We're not even too sure if we were liable for COVID funding, to be quite honest with you, because that kind of communication was not sent by the association.
Yeah, because I wanted us to talk about the interaction between the clubs and the association. Despite that the league has been declared, or league winners have been declared, and that the league is now completed officially, has there been any meetings with the province, with SAFA Western Cape, with the clubs?
Nothing.
Because there's going to be planning phase for the future. There must be preparations, how the game is going to happen with coronavirus, because it looks like the coronavirus is here to stay with us, and we are starting to find means and ways to live with it in a responsible manner.
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. SAFA reissued the COVID requirements that they issued before we were supposed to resume the league. That was the only communication we received. No communication of when the new league would begin. No communication of what the process is going to be. No communication of when the next meeting is going to be to discuss this. So again, the problem that we have, and I have, is that this thing is not being thought through correctly. There's no plan. There's no directive. There's no leadership. And we are club owners throughout the country having to run this league for SAFA. Yet we don't have any say in any decision that gets made. We have one meeting per annum, which is before the start of the season, when we get told so many people you need to have as under 23s. So the rules are clearly given to us. There's no challenging any question. There's no requesting any change of format. For the last 15 years that I've been in this league, 5 years with one club, for 10 years as the chairman and owner of Ikapa, nothing has changed, except the fact that the under-23 rule has been brought in. Again, work that 144 clubs across the nation is doing for SAFA with no compensation. But besides that, we cannot make a single decision as club owners. We're fighting 144 of us for 2 positions. Now, surely there's something wrong with that format. Something wrong with that format. Because it's almost like 144 clubs being placed in a jar, fighting it out, and 2's popping out. First 9 and then 2. There's no knockout competition. There's no structure. There's nothing.
So basically, the league, the only thing that the clubs compete in is just the league. So there's never been a situation where the clubs come together and they plan for the season, and not only plan for the season, but to plan for the league and to look at possible options of getting extra source of funding, and just to make it become commercial, it becomes attractive for the following and for interested investors to participate in.
Nothing. This league is sponsored by the ABC Motsepe Foundation. There's no opportunity to discuss an additional sponsor for the league. They're not looking for additional sponsors for the league. It is a competition that at the end of the day, the winners out of the 9 provinces will get R1 million, the runners up R500,000 rand, and that's what we play for. And then in each province, 1 to 8 to 1 to 10, whatever it is, receives prize money for your position that you've entered on the log. And that is it. But no format, no, it's the same thing for 15 years, for as long as I can remember, when it was called the Vodacom League and now moved into the ABC Motsepe. So, again, not well thought through, not well planned, nothing that makes. There's so many quality players playing at ABC Motsepe level. The question is, how do they get to the top flight? There is one competition, which is the Nedbank Cup, played by all divisions. The chances of 1 or 2 of the clubs reaching the last 8 is minimal. And when they did, they put up a hell of a showing. So you could see the quality of the teams in the ABC. We've had it over the last few seasons. ABC clubs beating PSL clubs. But this league seriously needs to be restructured, relooked at, and maybe reworked, because we're going to go on and on and on. And if we look at the quality that our national team is producing, there's the answer.
Yeah,
And yet,
we'll chat to the
and yet,
association. We've sent
we
some yeah. We've sent some invites to them to chat about women's football. We'll also send this chat, or rather this invite to also chat to them about the ABC Motsepe League. Unfortunately, they haven't responded. And if they're watching, I'm sure they will take note of it and respond to our invitations. Now, Chairman, as we close this part of the arbitration, now this arbitration outcome has been released, and on a technicality, you've been dismissed as the 8 clubs, and you have to pay the cost.
correct,
Yes.
correct.
Mm.
And that was some of the concerns of the other clubs. But we're responsible to do what we need to do, and we will. But again, as I said to you, we still exercise our rights. We debriefed, and we'll see what the outcome is going to be. I'm sure the playoffs will start on Monday, and best of luck to those teams that are going to participate there.
Yeah.
But our voices are still going to be heard at the end of the day, because as I said earlier, we're not here for commercial interest, as mentioned by the Council of SAFA, who made that accusation. We're here for football. And we are the people that are digging deep, taking money out of our own pockets to fund football for them, to ensure that these leagues are considered at least partly professional. They don't see it that way.
Yeah.
It's the amateur. And no effort, no communication, no. The big carrot is the 2 places for the NFD. And that is it.
Yeah.
And I can assure you,
Yeah.
some of the ABC
Yeah.
clubs
Yeah.
have
No.
shown that when they get to NFD, they compete quite easily.
Yeah.
Quite easily.
Now we'll chat with the FA and we'll find out more about that. Chairman, let's focus on your football club. And we've had conversations during the lockdown, and
We
looked at a couple of things. And at the time, it was the beginning. And we were talking about football players, we were talking about the coaching staff, we're talking about the agreements that you have. And where are you right now? Where do you find yourself as Ikapa Sporting? If we are to talk about the plans, if we are to talk about specifically, if you have released or have you signed any new players?
Okay, Idris, again, we haven't received a directive from the association. We don't know when this league is starting, when this league is planning to start, when we can start training, where we can start training. The facilities are slowly being made available, other than Fives football all over the country. So there's still no plan. From our side, we're planning. We've released the entire technical staff at the start of COVID, when the league stopped. All the players were informed about COVID, and recently we've retained certain players for the new season. And that goes without saying, that's the proper process to notify the players who are retained and to notify the technical staff of that as well. So at the beginning of COVID, we parted ways with our entire technical staff. Obviously, some of them are working gentlemen because we're not full time, and they have their own businesses and their own places of employment. So again, at our level, players are not full time, coaches are not full time. We train thrice a week. Maybe if we can, and it's school holidays and whatever the case may be, we train in the mornings or on weekends, on Sundays, or whatever the case may be. Bottom line is that, we have informed the players that are going to be retained, and at this point in time, we still need to mobilize a new technical staff.
Take me through your technical stuff. Any particular reason that you had to release all of them? Any particular reason? Is it performance based, or did you reach the end of an agreement, or was it the funding?
Number one, the league stopped. So it's an end of agreement. It's a work to pay process, as we know. This is not, and Safa calls it quite they call it quite strictly a amateur league. So we're not obliged to pay people salaries. They get stipend, and at the end of the day, we do our best to compensate the players, the coaching staff, because they all have jobs. If they don't have their own businesses, they are employed at various companies. So at that time, we weren't working. Us as club owners were also on lockdown, like football was on lockdown. So there was no income from your business to fund an amateur league, to fund Safa's league for them. So when there's no funds from your business, you can't fund those kind of luxuries, if you want to call it that. But we've come to the end of our current coaching staff. I think we've parted on mutual agreements. It was performance and among other things. And we're looking forward to get a new plan in place. We've been planning for the last 6 months, so at the end of the day, we should just be told when we need to start so we can start preparing. But up till now, there's been no communication.
Are you closer in getting into your technical team? Your
Yes, we are.
head coach.
We are. We have looked at various options to take the team forward and to develop a better quality and brand of players. And yes, we've shortlisted a few individuals, and in time we will definitely know who they are. After negotiating, the vision and everything else, we should be closer on making that decision.
Let's talk about the funding. We will hear who will be the head coach. Let's talk about the funding. Are you in a good space right now to continue before lockdown or before the coronavirus, or are you still finding your way? And if we had to talk about the sponsorships, because I know that you had about 2 or more sponsorships that forming part of your football club.
Look, Idris, no one's in a good space in the current economic climate that we have in this country, in the world, in fact. So, everybody is facing the same challenges, whether it's at this level or the level above or the level above that. Everybody is facing the same challenges. Businesses are facing challenges. Economically, it's down. And one has to take into account that lockdown is as much as for the chairmen and owners as it is for the players and coaches. So it's the one hand feeds the other. So if the one hand is not fed, it cannot feed the other. And this is the scenario. So, things are picking up, businesses are opening. We had a Huawei sponsor, which obviously it's a Chinese-based company. The lockdown started there, the virus started there, and up until today, we haven't heard from them again. We had a partnership, we never had a sponsor with them, and we were partnering them to, as I mentioned to you in the previous interview, partnering them to assist them, and they would assist us. We had a energy drink sponsor, also a UK-based. Again, UK has just gone on the second lockdown. So you can just understand the principle is totally non-existent. So, it's always challenging. At this level, it's amateur, we get told. We are amateur. So, we try our best and we do the best we can. And my heart goes out to all the owners and chairmen of all the 144 clubs for taking their own money, their time, their effort and commitment to make this league what it is for this ABC Motsepe. It's not the sponsor of the league that makes this league what it is. It's not the association that makes this league what it is. It is the chairmen, the owners of this club, that yes, we are fighting for the 2 places at any level, but we're trying to make a difference to the quality of player in football. To see a player in the PSL, to see the player overseas. I had the pleasure of having those coaches and players who are currently now in the PSL. A former coach of Ikapa won the NFD last year, Brandon Truter. He's now competing in the PSL. He's winning games in the PSL. He's been our coach for 2 seasons. He comes from Ikapa. There's players across Europe from Ikapa. There's players in the PSL from Ikapa. And that is more rewarding to see than the challenges that we are facing in this league. And that's why we're saying, association, show us a better deal in football. Because we're doing this kind of work for you. We're doing this kind of thing for this country's football. And listening to people mobilizing across the country on the Robert Marawa show the other evening. People all across the country giving the support that they had for us for doing this. It speaks volumes. And whether we lost the arbitration case, whether we having to pay the legal cost of it to the association for the council and the arbitrator, that's fine, we'll do it. But it's not going to stop us from producing the players, from giving our commitment, from making players and coaches, administrators and clubs being who they are. And that's more important. Football's way greater than the 2 places for the NFD. Way bigger than that. Football in this league, these 144 clubs, show football to be greater than the 2 places they are giving us. Because that's the carrot. That's all it is. It's a carrot for those 2 places.
Well, Chairman, you said quite a lot. And one thing I will agree you with is that the amateur football, it touches the communities and it makes huge impact because of the opportunities that are given to the coaches, to the administrators, to the football players, to the match officials. So this cuts right across our communities. And therefore, that's why we say we will invite the Football Association to talk about this, not only this league, but to chat about the SAB as well, and to talk about SASO, and talk about the regional women's league. Because there is a big gap that one can see in terms of capitalizing and make use and taking opportunities to strive for the best and to take it to the next level and move on up until to where these leagues should be. Because amateur football, as the association says, it belongs to the association. And therefore, it has to take care of its leagues. Like parents who look after the kids, they have to. And it's not a matter of, and the beauty about this league is that it has a sponsorship. But I think there could be more leverage that can be, taken into account and be used in the right way, in the right direction to grow the league. But we're going to end it there, Chairman, and we wish you everything of the best with your football club.
Idris, and in closing, I just want to thank the 144 clubs, the owners, the clubs, for giving what they do, and what they do for football is remarkable. And you can't put a number to that because it's heartfelt and it comes from the heart. And I want to challenge the association. I want to challenge them to improve the situation of football in this country for the masses. Because you know what? Football is for the masses, it's for us. And it's a beautiful game. And you know what? Let's keep the game beautiful. Thank you, masses, 144 clubs. It's amazing. It's wonderful to be in the ABC Motsepe. The
Thank you so
country
much.
needs football.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Chairman. We really appreciate your time and we wish you everything of the best within the football club.
Thank you. Thank you.